Hello, and welcome to the BYU Library Family History webinar. We're so glad you could join us today. I'm Rachel Bettis, and I'll be your host for this webinar. If you have technical difficulties during the webinar, please use the chat box and I can address your concerns. You're welcome to use the chat box during the webinar for comments, insights, and questions. However, all questions will be addressed at the end of the presentation. Our next webinar is on May 30th with Koji Sekiguchi on researching genealogy records in Japan. If you would like to access a previous webinar, please visit our webinar index on our website or search on our YouTube channel. All of our webinars are recorded and uploaded by the following Monday for your convenience. We also post links to recordings and other updates on our Facebook and Twitter accounts. For today's webinar, we are pleased to hear from Shenley Puterbaugh involving younger generations in preserving family history. Before we begin, here is a little about Shenley. Shenley is the founder of InspireFamilyHistory.com, a website dedicated to sharing ideas, tools, and resources for helping people to learn to love family history. Shenley has a passion for getting people excited about family history and educating people about the benefits that studies have demonstrated on engaging children in family history activities. She loves being a wife and a mother of four. She is presented for Roots Tech, MyHeritage, Your DNA Guide, the International Jewish Genealogical Society Conference, and for other organizations. She is excited to be presenting for the BYU Family History Library today. We will now turn the time over to Shenley.
Okay, I think you guys can all see that. Thank you so much for having me and for joining me on this presentation today. I'm excited to be with you. I have a lot of ideas to share with you for involving younger generations in preserving family history. And my goal is that by the end of this presentation, you'll have a specific idea that will fit the specific person you hope will preserve family history. But first, I'll introduce myself and then introduce the topic. I've been doing family history for 20 years, and I've learned a lot about family history, as you can imagine. I've discovered that I have a passion for helping people to inspire their loved ones to love family history. My interest in inspiring others to love family history began when I was 18. I had just graduated from high school and decided to go by myself to spend a week with each set of my grandparents. It was an amazing experience getting to know my grandparents in a one-on-one way, recording their life stories, going through old boxes, visiting places that were significant in their lives and those of our ancestors, and creating memories with them. I came back from that trip with over 1,000 names to add to my family tree. I came home on a family history high. I was so excited to share what I had learned with my family. And to my disappointment, they didn't get as excited as I had hoped because they just weren't that interested. Have any of you experienced this when you share your family history findings with your loved ones? I'm sure most of you have at one point. This is the reaction we all are hoping for when sharing with our loved ones. I began a quest to find ways to get my family excited about family history. Since then, I've shared family history with my parents, siblings, grandparents, aunts and uncles, my husband, in-laws, and my children in ways that interest them. It's a process, and it begins with helping them to have positive experiences with family history, experiences that pique their interest. After many years of trying to inspire my husband, I finally succeeded. On New Year's Day this year, I found him at our table working on something, and it looked really important. I asked him what he was doing, and he said that he was making a chart to put on our fridge. It was for us and our 2 teens to keep track of how many ancestors we find to add to our family tree and how many sources we add. To me, this was a big deal. I've been working to inspire my children to love family history, and now my husband and I are a team with this mission. These are our children. Our son is 14, our daughter is 13, and our younger girls are 4 and 2. A lot of ideas that I'll share with you today are ideas that I've used with my children, my husband, and lots of other family members too. One of the biggest lessons that I've learned is that we can't force anyone to like family history. It's a lot easier with younger kids because whatever you have planned, they'll usually go along with it. As they get older, if they're not interested, they will give you a look just like this and will not do it, or will do it with a bad attitude, and that isn't the goal. When we address the topic of involving younger generations in preserving family history, the first thing we need to address is that there needs to be an interest. Youth will not choose to spend time doing something that doesn't interest them. So, as parents, grandparents, teachers, or leaders, we need to think about how we can bring family history to their level. I'd like you to think back for a minute to your high school history class. Now imagine being in that class and all you're learning about is names of people, events, and dates. How interesting would that class be for you? Not interesting at all. So often when we do family history with youth, that is what we're showing them, names and dates. But what makes history engaging is the stories of events and the stories of the people. If we want our youth or young people in our families to be engaged in family history, or even preserving family history, we need to connect it to them and make it meaningful. Sorry, hold on just a second. Meaning we need to help them learn and discover the stories of their families. I've had the opportunity to ask many youth what got them interested in family history, and almost always the answer has been a story. Now, before I get to the ideas, I want to go over the why of getting younger generations involved in preserving. An obvious answer is that it will help us. As family historians, we really can't do it all. There's so many projects we'd love to do, but don't have the time for, and help would be awesome. But most importantly, they will experience the many incredible benefits of doing family history. I have found 4 studies that show the benefits of family history, specifically to younger generations, although I'm sure we all benefit from them. Okay, so the benefits include improving psychological well-being, reduced feelings of loneliness and depression, finding meaning in life, improved mood, well-being, life satisfaction, improved self-esteem, enhanced feelings of control and mastery over life as one ages, coming to grips with the good, the bad, and the ugly, less anxiety, depression, anger, aggression, and acting out, higher levels of emotional well-being, higher levels of identity achievement, internal control, high self-esteem, higher reported family function, higher reported family traditions, a sense of self-worth, the ability to plan for the future, acceptance of oneself, a sense of self, being grounded, connection across generations, being able to resist illnesses, maintain a positive attitude, cope with adversity, manage their stress effectively, find more meaning, and be more resilient. I don't know about you, but I would love to have these benefits. I love to have these benefits in my life, and I would love these benefits for my children and the younger generations in my family. So take a moment and get a piece of paper and a pen, or create a note on your phone. Make your paper note look like this. Write down the name of a child, youth, or young adult who would like to get involved in family history, specifically someone who could help preserve your family history. Think about them for a minute. Write down their age and a few of their interests. Do they like hands-on things? Do they spend a lot of time on the computer? Do they like to interact with people, or would they rather work alone? Think about their hobbies and talents. Now, the first step to encouraging a young person to help in family history preservation is piquing their interest with a story, one that resonates with them and gets them curious about their family. Think of a family story that would likely be interesting to them based on their interests you wrote down. My 14-year-old son is a joker. He loves to make jokes and trick us in one way or the other. His favorite family story is about his great-great-grandfather and grandmother who had a pet squirrel. He loves hearing about the squirrel and how it came to be their pet. He thinks it's hilarious and is very proud to have them as great-great-grandparents. Okay, on your paper or in your note, Write down a brief title for the story that you think of that could inspire the person that you thought of. The next step is to invite or encourage your young person to do a preservation project. As I already mentioned, I'm hoping by the end of this presentation, you'll come away with not only lots of ideas for involving younger generations in preserving family history, but you'll have a specific project that you think the young person in your life will want to do and enjoy. Now for the rest of my presentation, I'm going to share lots of preservation project ideas. These are things they can do to help preserve family history. Don't forget to write down any ideas that stand out to you, and then pick one or pick a few that you think they will enjoy. You might even decide to do some of them yourself. If you know a young person who likes to take videos, then they may enjoy videoing the stories of heirlooms. We have done this with my kids' grandparents. The first set of grandparents we did it with was my mom and my stepdad. While we were visiting, we asked them for an heirloom tour. They went from room to room around their house and showed my kids the heirlooms that they have and told them the stories about each of them. It was very memorable, and there were things they pointed out that I didn't even know about. If we hadn't have done this, when they pass on, the story of these heirlooms would have been lost. They just would have been objects in their house, and we wouldn't have known what to do or how important they were. The videos can then be put on the profile for that person on your family tree so they can be preserved and saved. Not only should we video the stories of heirlooms, but we should take pictures of them. If you know a young person who likes photography, why not get them involved? You can even buy or make a photo box for taking pictures of smaller items. It softens the light for better pictures and gives a nice backdrop. Most youth that I know would be thrilled at the opportunity to travel. They could help plan a family history trip, which will inevitably create many opportunities for learning and preserving family history. Together, you can pick a place where your ancestors lived, and the young person going with you can help plan the trip. Go through your family tree with them and find all the ancestors who lived in or near that place. Then make a spreadsheet like the one on the screen of the towns you'll visit, the places to visit in that town, which ancestors that place is significant to, and what dates that ancestor was there. Having a young person help with this will not only get them excited, but it will make the trip more meaningful, and they will be more willing to help preserve what you find on the trip. And their interest in family history will most likely continue long after the trip. I do have a whole presentation about planning the ultimate family history trip, but that's a topic for another time. Young people can definitely help with finding information from cemeteries. They can do this by doing research on Find a Grave or Billions Grave websites. If they can't find their ancestors on these websites, they can just go in person to the cemeteries and take pictures and record the information they find and upload it to either of those websites so people all over the world have access to their ancestors' information. When you say research, most young people think boring, but it really doesn't have to be. I have limited screen time in our home, so if there's a reason to get on their computers, my teens especially will usually take it. If I say, hey, let's work on family history for a bit, they're usually willing if they don't have anything else going on. You can make it fun by turning it into a challenge to see what information they can find, and maybe even providing prizes. For someone who likes to write, sources to stories is a really fun idea. Choose an ancestor that you think your young person would be interested in. If they're interested in wars, choose someone from your family who served their country. Or if they're interested in sports or music, you can choose someone who's an athlete or musician. Or choose someone who has a similar character trait or similar challenges in that they experienced in their life that are similar to the young person. You can email them sources from their ancestor, or if they already have a family search account, then guide them to the ancestors page. Ask them to use all of the sources to write the story of their ancestor's life. This could even work as a school project. Your young person will help preserve the stories of your ancestors at the same time they're coming to know them. They can even take this a step further by using AI. They can write all the details about this ancestor and let AI create a story about them by just pressing a button. AI is fascinating to lots of people right now, and this is a great way for young people to use it. People that love to talk and listen may really enjoy interviewing relatives and preserving their stories. This can be done over the phone or in person. It would be ideal to audio or video record the interview. Then they can upload it to Family Search or whatever you use for your family tree. This is a really meaningful experience. When I was 18, as I mentioned earlier, I visited my grandparents and I interviewed them all. I can't even tell you how grateful I am that I had that opportunity. Not only did I learn about them, but I connected with them on a deeper level, and they appreciated it so much. It really strengthened my relationship with each of them. Before interviewing my paternal grandpa, I had only spent time with him maybe 5 times in my life. And it was always with my parents and my siblings, and I did not know him well. He couldn't figure out why I would want to come visit and learn about him. He was initially suspicious, but my dad explained why, and he was willing to have me, thankfully. From then on, my grandpa and I talked every few months and actually had a good relationship. There are apps that can be used to record and transcribe the recordings easily. Once the interview is transcribed, your young person can come up with follow-up questions or ask for clarification on certain things they said. There's also an amazing app called Marco Polo for any of you who haven't heard of it. It's a video chat app where you send a video of yourself talking to your family member, and then they respond when it's convenient, and those get recorded. And so your young person can even use that app for interviewing. They could ask a family member a question, and then the family member could respond when they're available, and they could just keep going back and forth over time with that. Many young people love the idea of having a YouTube channel. YouTube's an amazing opportunity to preserve family history. Imagine if your young person decided to interview family members. It could be the oldest people in the family, or it could be all of the extended family members over time. It could be cousins, aunts and uncles, grandparents, siblings, parents. Now imagine that they did some interviews in person and video recorded it, and some interviews were done on Zoom with people that didn't live nearby, and those were recorded as well. Then your young person puts the interviews on a YouTube channel and sends the link to all of their family members so they can watch them too. I love that YouTube channels can be set to private, so only family members could have access to the channel. But wouldn't this be so amazing? Imagine the connection and unity it could create in a family as they get excited for the next video to be posted and are able to watch it and get to know family members even better. This idea actually came to me as I was creating this presentation, and I can't wait to propose it to my niece, who has told me she wants her own YouTube channel and has also been interested in interviewing family members. Digitize documents, photos, and videos. Epson has a photo scanner that's so fast and can scan tons of photos very quickly. Some of us have slides from our parents and grandparents, and there's equipment that can be purchased to scan them. When we were visiting my husband's uncle a few years ago, he showed us a huge box of slides that he had inherited from his parents. They had been sitting in his basement for decades. He asked if we wanted them, and of course we said yes. My daughter has taken this on as a project and is working on scanning them at the BYU Family History Library, which has a machine that you can use anytime. You might even find a family history library that has one near you. My dad has home videos that he's asked me for help with. I've been digitizing our home videos as well. You can ask for help, just like my dad did. You can even tell your son or daughter that if they could help you digitize what you have, it would be the best Christmas or birthday present ever. Preserve the memory of a loved one or ancestor by using creativity. If you have a young person who loves art in any form, they could use this creativity to create a piece of art or music about an ancestor. Once again, this would be an amazing gift over the holidays. If a loved one passed or an ancestor had an impact on someone, they could write a poem or song or create a painting or a sculpture and give it to a family member as a very meaningful gift that will be treasured and preserve the memory of the person who it's about. A few years ago, when I was at Roots Tech in Salt Lake, I met an artist who painted scenes from people's family history. This was so amazing to me, and the paintings she had were just beautiful. This made me really want a painting of the home I grew up in. Just this last Christmas, my husband gave me a piece of art of my childhood home, and I was so excited. Art and music can really help preserve family history. Another way to preserve family culture is music. If someone loves music, this might be a good project for them. They can create a playlist of music from their ancestors. Think about specific ancestors. And if they know their favorite song or band, add it to the playlist. You may be able to ask older relatives and they can remember some of their favorites. But for people who have lived a long time ago, look up the most popular songs from the time and place they were living. This was a really fun project that we did for a family reunion. If you ever want background music for a family event, an ancestor playlist will definitely get conversation going. People will wonder which ancestor the song is from. You can even include the favorite songs of living family members, so their favorite songs will be preserved too. Recipes are a huge part of family culture. Preserving your family culture would definitely include preserving family recipes. When I was in my 20s, I decided to create a family cookbook for my family. I contacted my grandparents, aunts, and uncles, my parents, and asked for recipes that were significant to them, that had been passed down to them, or that they had made a lot while raising their children. I then compiled them into this cookbook and gave it to each of them and my cousins for Christmas. In January, this past January, my sister's family was visiting, and my niece, Layla, she was looking through the family cookbook that I had made. And as she was looking through it, she was noticing the names of each person that contributed the recipe, and she was intrigued. I told her that I was wanting to do an updated version soon, and that I really wanted to include stories about the recipes from family members that had them. And she decided she wanted to help. She asked to help. And I was so excited because she is helping preserve our family history. She immediately started calling family members and getting the stories behind the recipes and typing them up. And I'm really excited to have the new recipe book printed with those stories that she helped preserve. Another way to preserve your family recipes is with a cooking show. My kids did this when they were around 10 years old. They would teach how to make a family recipe as I video recorded it. As part of the video, they would share which ancestor made this recipe and a story about them. They would then send the video to their cousins. This is something that could be added to a family YouTube channel. Someone who likes to write or draw could create a comic or a children's story that can preserve the stories of their ancestors. Children's books and comics are very digestible and easy to read and understand, and can preserve a family story for generations. There's also a computer program called Doodly that allows you to take a family story and you create the characters. You pick what hair or what body shape or everything about the character, and then you can bring in different parts of the story and create an animated version of your family story. And then you can record your voice or a grandparent's voice telling the story. And it's really fun to watch. It's called Doodly. The last idea for today is decorating. I was talking to someone in an expo hall a few years ago and telling them what I did. And she had no idea how to get her teen interested in family history. I then asked what her daughter's interests were. She told me that her daughter loved to decorate. And there are so many ways to incorporate family history into your home decor. One way that this woman could help inspire her daughter with family history is to ask her to create an ancestor wall for their home. Show her all the photos and take her to a frame store or a thrift store and let her find frames for the photos. But if you already have frames, then show her what you have and let her go. The more ownership you can give a young person, the more excited they will be. Your young person can help find things about different ancestors that you can incorporate in your home decor or their home decor if they don't live in the same home as you. I've seen people hang pictures of the ships that their ancestors immigrated on. My friend, who's a quarter Native American, has a picture from her tribe on the mantle of her fireplace. They can also find creative ways to display family heirlooms. My great-grandpa was in a band in London in the early 1900s. A few years ago, I looked up the band because I was curious and came across a ticket to one of their performances that was being sold on eBay. It was from the early 1900s. I bought it and gave it to my grandma, who was his daughter, and she has it hung in her home. If you have an ancestor who flew or worked on planes or cars, you can display a model of the car or plane. This is a way to preserve your family history and share it with anyone who enters your home. I guarantee there will be questions asked and you'll be able to share, or they will be able to share. I hope this has given you some ideas for involving younger generations in preserving family history. I hope you have a specific project that you think your young person will enjoy. When you ask them to help them see how fun and interesting it can be and connect it to what they're interested in. You'll need a story and a potential project, or even a few projects to choose from. Many of these ideas can be a great gift. So if you know a young person who's struggling to come up with a Christmas, birthday, Mother's or Father's Day gift, some of these could be used as a suggestion. My ideas that I've put together from this presentation are for my 14-year-old son that I mentioned earlier. He loves learning about World War II. He's social and he's very athletic and loves sports. He likes to travel and go on adventures. The story that I thought of is of when my grandpa Leonard, his military plane went down over enemy territory. I can naturally tell him that story when we're driving the car or working in the yard or even eating dinner. The preservation projects I thought about for him are sources to stories about my grandpa Leonard. He could also help plan a family history trip to Germany because the Puterbaugh line comes from Germany, and he's very proud of being a Puterbaugh. Because he's so social, he could also enjoy interviewing family members and creating a YouTube channel to share with them. Now, go back to your paper and look over your plan. You can do it. I want to conclude by saying that anytime they're sharing their family history, they're preserving it. I wish you all the best in your efforts to involve younger generations in preserving family history. You're welcome to visit inspirefamilyhistory.com for ideas, tools, and resources to inspire children of all ages to love family history. I would also love to hear your experiences involving younger generations in preserving family history. So I've given you my email address. You're welcome to email any questions that you may have that we don't get to in this Q&A. I will now turn the time back to my friends at BYU Family History Library.
Thank you so much for joining us today, everyone. We hope you'll join us for our next webinar, which will be on May 30th by Koji Sekiguchi on researching genealogy records in Japan. A recording of this webinar will be made available next week. You can view that on our YouTube channel or our website. If you have any comments or questions, you can always email us at fh_webinars@byu.edu or follow Facebook and Twitter. Thank you and have a wonderful week.